Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today's adventure was loosely inspired by Superman Brainiac, which was a 2008 Superman story written by Jeff Johns with art by Gary Frank. In it, Brainiac acquired the DNA of Superman and used it to create a clone of him, which he was then able to transfer his mind into. Those comics also dealt with the Bottle City of Kandor and a bunch of other Superman stuff that we left out of this adventure. And today's tale picks up where we left off last time, when the mind of Lex Luthor was transferred into a Kryptonian memory crystal, the same sort of crystal that contains the mind of Jor-El, Superman's father. In some continuities, those holograms of Jor-El are a pre-recorded message. But in our game world, it's more like how Vision from the Avengers had the memory engrams of Wonder Man, allowing for two-way conversations, etc. So, anyway, before we get into all of that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out on our end with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love to hear from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and that's thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story takes place in 1975 when Brainiac did the stereotypical alien abduction thing to the four superwomen of that era. Using the DNA of Superman, he performs in vitro fertilization experiments. Barbara, Kristen, and Lisa are impregnated, but the other heroes break in and stop Brainiac before he can do the same to Jimmy Olsen's wife, Lucy. 9 months later, Barbara Briggs gives birth to Christopher Briggs. Kristen Wells gives birth to Ann Wells. Lisa Jennings gives birth to James Jennings. And we've talked about Chris on the podcast before, but we've never talked about his siblings, Ann Wells and James Jennings, who grew up in Danville, Ohio. Which brings us to the main plot of today's adventure. One day, the Daily Planet, mild-mannered Clark Kent learns that Brainiac's 1980s style skeletal robots are attacking. So he ducks into a broom closet, says, "This looks like a job for Superman," and changes into his super uniform. Then flies up, up, and away, scanning Metropolis from the air with his X-ray vision. It doesn't take long for him to spot the Skelelots wreaking havoc on the streets. So Superman gets some innocent bystanders to safety, then blasts the robots with heat vision. He takes some out, but more show up. Superman defeats them too, but then even more show up. So, in the spirit of Jimmy Olsen's old signal watch, Superman presses a special button on his cell phone. And in no time flat, Chris, Jim, and Ann show up. So the four of them make for a more fair fight. The Superman family smashes wave after wave of skeletal robots. Meanwhile, in space, Brainiac's skull ship orbits Earth. Using the DNA of Superman, Brainiac has created a fresh body, cloned from the Man of Steel himself. Then Brainiac downloads his mind into this body. While Superman and his family are distracted, Brainiac flies down to the Fortress of Solitude. Out front is a gigantic golden key, which is said to be so heavy that only Superman can lift it. But now Brainiac has that level of strength too. So for the first time, Brainiac gains access to the Fortress of Solitude. When he walks in, the supercomputer scans him and detects the DNA of Superman. So the supercomputer mistakenly welcomes Brainiac home. Brainiac walks over to where the Kryptonian memory crystals are stored, but they're not marked. So he places a few in the slot, searching for one in specific. In doing so, he brings up a hologram of Lex Luthor. The two villains exchange pleasantries, and Lex makes a quip about how neither of them are in their original body anymore. Brainiac says the plight of Luthor is irrelevant to his current goal. Lex, trapped in the crystal, pleads with Brainiac to get him out. Brainiac says Luthor's bargaining posture is highly dubious. Lex says that he and Brainiac go way back, but Brainiac doesn't care. Finally, Lex says if Brainiac saves him, there will probably come a time when Lex will become useful to Brainiac. And when that time comes, Lex will owe Brainiac a favor. Brainiac considers Luthor's proposal, weighing the probability that this might eventually transpire. Lex grits his holographic teeth and says that time and again, Superman has defeated them both. And it's not outside the realm of possibility that it could happen again. And if it does, it would be better for them to help each other with their respective goals. Brainiac decides Luthor is right, so he steals the memory crystal which houses the mind of Lex Luthor. Brainiac then searches through the other crystals until he finally finds the one he's looking for. Once Brainiac has what he came for, he returns to his starship. Back in Metropolis, the Superman family keeps smashing Skelelobots, and eventually, no more robots show up. James Jennings asks what was the point of these robots even attacking, and his father, Superman, says it feels like a diversion. And Wells asks what it was a diversion from, and Clark says he's not sure. But since Brainiac is the one behind this, whatever it is, can't be good. Back on Brainiac's skull ship, two new clones are made. One is another fresh clone of Superman. Currently, it is mindless. Nothing has been downloaded into it yet. The second clone is crafted using DNA taken from the original body of Lex Luthor. It starts off mindless too, but then Brainiac transfers the mind of Lex Luthor from the crystal it was in into this new clone body. After a few moments, Luthor opens his eyes and is thankful to have a physical form again. As he gets up off Brainiac's surgical table, he sees Brainiac examining data from one of the other crystals. Brainiac is going in, looking at a string of code, downloading that into other devices, altering it, and dissecting it. Luthor asks what he's doing, and Brainiac says that this is the crystal that contained Superman's father, Jor-El. Once Brainiac has altered a version of Jor-El's mind, he transfers that into the other clone body. Brainiac then bombards the body with concentrated yellow sunlight, bringing his powers up to the same level that Superman's own powers are at. Luthor studies this for a moment, then grins. He finally understands what Brainiac is doing. He's making an adversary that Superman would never have the heart to destroy. And if Superman won't fight back, then it is he who will be destroyed. And he says as much to Brainiac. Brainiac commends Luthor on his deductive reasoning and says he's correct. And then we get to the epilogue of this one. Recently, Jimmy Olsen returned from the dead only to discover that his wife, Lucy, had remarried and moved on. Heartbroken, Jimmy tried to use the miracle machine to summon alternate Lucys from other timelines. But like Brainiac 5 once said, it takes clarity of thought to use the miracle machine correctly. And Jimmy was a wreck at the time. So certain aspects of the other timelines did intrude and merge with the mainstream game world, causing people to remember multiple versions of a single event. Because of this, the general public now has conflicting memories of Lex Luthor, because in some timelines, he was a known villain, while in others, he was not. So when Lex Luthor is spotted among the living again, he is arrested for crimes against humanity and he goes to court. He defends himself in court using that notorious intelligence of his, and he comes up with a pretty interesting defense. Luthor argues that any possible evidence against him could be from some else world that he never had anything to do with. And because he is innocent until proven guilty, and the prosecution can't figure out how to match the evidence from, from one reality to a criminal from another, Luthor becomes a free man. The case becomes infamous, and Luthor is all over social media. The fact that he is in a young clone body adds to the general public thinking that the bad Luthor that they remember was some old man from another timeline, and he could not possibly be this Luthor. And finally, armed with all of the Kryptonian tech that Luthor learned about while in the Fortress of Solitude, Lex starts manufacturing products that are far beyond what the competition is cranking out. From self-driving flying cars to androids to spacecraft capable of reaching Mars with ease, it suddenly seems like Lex Luthor is the man of tomorrow. And obviously, we haven't seen the last of Lex or Brainiac or that Jor-El clone, but those are all stories for another day. We enjoyed this one. We hope you did too. If so, as always, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave a comment. And from everyone here at the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.